Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today we're going to talk about C-Wreck, the new legendary Riftwatcher airdrop card that's coming to Splinterlands. Card looks great. The artwork looks amazing, but let's get into a kind of a detailed deep dive on what these stats and abilities might do. These are subject to change, but let's talk about it. Let's have some fun with this conversation. And before we do that though, my name is Dwayne Cunningham and I go by Infidel1258. If you're new to my channel, I cover Splinterlands every single day. I also cover other NFT-based video games because I think there's something really different about blockchain-based games that reward you for your time and attention. And I think it's actually important to be involved because I think there's true multipliers that are possible when you're receiving trivial rewards for your time and attention. They can add up and then snowball. And so I'm excited. And C-Wreck is part of that, right? It's like this is a card that's coming to you for free in some sense. If you've already bought Riftwatcher packs, you have this opportunity or maybe this guarantee that you're going to get this card. And this is one of the ways that a game like this can be really different, right? It can give you these rewards and you think, I talk to people who don't know crypto or who don't know NFT gaming and they say, well, like, how is it possible that they pay you to play the game? And that basic sort of that disconnect, they only understand value or payment from the perspective of like fiat currency. And why would a company give you fiat to play their game? Well, of course, you and I know it. That's not how this works. They give you NFTs, they give you cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency and NFTs are printed out of thin air. So then how do they have value? Well, they're limited in number and they have utility within the system. And then cards like this especially have like a lot of utility, I think. So, I know you know that, but not everybody that's coming into the channel is going to know that. So this is why it's interesting. This is why it's different. This is why we talk about it every day. And C-Wreck does look good. These stats, first of all, the artwork looks amazing. Like the colors, the color palette is, I really do find it, I want to say stunning. Like I love the variety of blues that are in here. The aquamarine, and then the humanoid figure. The gigantic, musculature. It looks daunting, yet it looks playful. It looks scary, but yet it's like, playful, like kiddie friendly. It's not gruesome or horrific. It's really cool and powerful, but it's also, kid friendly, and I like that. And I love how the boat got obliterated. Looks like some sort of ship was destroyed in this massive wave and caught up in the wave, and now is almost like a helmet for the sea golem or C-Wreck. I'm surprised they didn't call it a golem though, to be honest. I don't think there already is a sea golem, so I'm surprised they didn't go with sea golem. So I love the artwork, and then the abilities. Like it says, stats and abilities of the character are current and are in testing phases. Everything is subject to change. This to me feels exceptional. So I won't be surprised if this gets nerfed to some extent. But let's try and go deeper than that by looking at some of the partnerships, the summoners, the monsters that this could work well with. Superficially though, let's start by saying, this card's going to be expensive for a couple of reasons. One, the quality and caliber is significant. Two, the number of Riftwatcher packs that are being deleted already and that truly are never going to see the marketplace are substantial. And so we thought originally there was going to be 3 million Riftwatcher packs. It's clearly going to be like closer to half of that are actually going to be in the hands of players, meaning the opportunities to populate our player base with this card have shrunk dramatically from where we would have originally thought they would be. And so a card like this that is quality, that is going to be in the Modern League for quite some time, is higher than you might have thought, let's say a year ago, let's say 6 months ago. Because again, that change in how we're handling the Riftwatcher packs changes the number of cards from this edition that get released into the system. And then the caliber, like I say, is really substantial. Bloodlust is an amazing ability. And, my one hesitation in really going crazy about the Bloodlust here is that the speed probably means you're not going to be the main killer most of the time. However, you've got Archery Reflect, Magic Reflect. That combination's really nasty. It reminds me of like a Cornelius with the returns and the self heal plus the big body, lots of hit points. Armor's great. This C-Rec is going to have some excellent partners from the blue team, which we'll get into in a second. But to add to these return fire and the magic reflect, the amplify ability makes it extra juicy, right? Because you're now kicking back even more damage. So I think this is going to be the path. The return fire, the magic reflect, and the amp are going to be the main return path through which you're going to proc that bloodlust, which is crazy. Like, this thing could get out of hand. But then also in reverse speed with the 1 speed, I think suddenly you start seeing that 4 damage landing and being more impactful more often. Speed matters. So if you're throwing a 1 speed and I've got a 6 speed and it's not reverse speed, you're going to miss. You're going to miss every time, and you're going to see this is good from like a meat shield perspective in those contexts, and it's kicking back damage and it's repairing itself, all good. But you're not going to see this working unless it's a reverse speed or it's true strike or, you know, something like that, or you're bringing tons of speed manipulation to your team creation. So I like this card a lot. The only real context or weakness that I might see or declare, like I guess speculate about, would be, like I say, the speed is a limiting factor, but it's not a deep impediment, because the main thing with a card like this is absolutely its tankability, its sustainability. The resiliency it has allows the rest of your team to keep doing what they're doing. So the main weakness is that it's not going to be a primary killer in most contexts. 4 damage is decent. It's pretty even strong, and you might say, but 1 speed is, again, contextually weak, and 4 is not a huge damage output. It's not terrible, but it's not huge. When you're looking at something with this much mana, you can get cards that do more than that, let's say. But this focus, or this card's main key or feature, isn't its damage output, it's its sustainability, its resiliency, the fact that your other teammates are allowed to thrive and do what they do, because this one is out there staying alive. But is it? This is one other kind of weakness I might see. Speed is part of it. Melee damage output are probably 2 critiques or points of, not critique because this card's still great, but pointing out the weaknesses. Speed, melee damage output relatively low, especially when you compare it to some of the other giants in the game. And then the third weakness I want to focus in on is just that it's a giant. And it being a giant, 10 mana or more means that you're going to get that double damage. And there actually is a good number of giant killers these days. As we come into peak monsters and we search up just giant killer, we see, and we get regular foil. There's quite a few cards here that if these things drop their shots against you, you're going to just be deleted. And some of these are quite fast, and some of these can't be dodged, right? The magic damage, because the new C-Rec doesn't have phase, so these magic bombs are going to drop. Cards like Sudi Shaman got better in this context, right? You're going to absolutely go nuclear on that thing, because you're going to hit with the recharge, which is triple damage. You're going to do double damage from giant killer, delete, and it doesn't. And the C-Rec does not have, but there's no void armor, so that's not going to slow me down. And then also there's no phase, so you're gonna land. So yeah, cards like that get this is the interesting thing. This is a bit of a side note. We're now a little bit of a digression away from the C-Rec, but in the town hall today, there was some comment about how we maybe need to look at soulbound reward cards or gladiators and maybe nerf them because they're quite powerful. And I think the request from the audience on that respect, this almost deserves its own video, but it's related to this. It's so clear to me that you can just release future cards that either buff or nerf indirectly. And that's what the game has always done. Cards like Sudi Shaman, not the best. But this new legendary card is good in many, many ways. But this card will be better against that card. And I'm not saying this is a direct counter. It's not. But, Jin Inferni is going to hit hard against the C-Rec. Capitalist, all of these magic monsters are going to hit hard against that C-Rec. And therefore, I would argue Giant Killer, as I've said for a long time about Giant Killer, the ability gets better and better and better the longer the game goes on. So cards that are on the screen right now, which are all Giant Killers, get better and better and better because you get more and more and more monsters that are giant level or 10 mana or above. Meaning there's more recipients that can receive that double damage. And so this is how you nerf indirectly cards that already exist. This is what happened with Lama Kron. This is what happened to some extent with Yodin, with Kitty, by creating other monsters and summoners that add more speed manipulation or that, reflect archery damage, etc. So the path to correction of old oversight, or let's say maybe overpowered cards, is not nerfing old cards. That's a problem because people bought those or earned them. They expected those to carry a certain value based on their utility. You don't want to nerf that. That undermines the entire confidence that the community will carry over the card assets they're receiving. What you want to do is release other cards that are going to augment the ecosystem if you find that certain cards have massive win rates. That's what we've done before. That's what I expect we'll do in the future. And even as I look at this new card, C-Rec, I get the feeling this is to some extent what they're doing with Giant Killer. They're giving Giant Killer more utility. So this card is excellent, but its weaknesses are clearly the speed, the relatively low damage output, but you have to remember this is damage output also. So the damage output is a minor critique, and the giant element, which is fine in most respects, but if you go up against like a Giant Killer, any of those I just pointed out, magic base, you're going to be in trouble. So C-Rec's great. And then let's look at some of the partners from the blue team. But before we do, quickly, how many packs of Riftwatcher do you need to buy in order to earn this thing, a guaranteed copy of this thing? In order to get one for sure copy of it, you need 250 Riftwatcher packs. I'm at 462. I'm very tempted to come through and buy 38 more packs, and I just might do that so that I get that guaranteed second copy of this thing. This is a great card. The only thing is 2 copies isn't going to change. It's not going to dramatically improve what I have, but I think this card is going to be powerful, desirable, and valuable. So I might just do that. I'm going to think about that. I have DEC on hand. I could pull the trigger and make that happen. So we'll see. But 250 packs is what you need. If you have 249 that you've already bought, go ahead and get the other ones. You get that guaranteed drop. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. Is it worth it to buy 38 more? Maybe it is. I'm going to think about that. But yeah, let's look at some of the partnerships, because I think the C-Rec is going to have some really powerful, strong support from that blue team. We'll pull up Dragon, Neutral, and Water, and we will look at Tank Heal. We know there's a lot of support from the blue team, but the clear sort of benefit, or the most obvious partner here, is Merdali Guardian with the repair and the Tank Heal. And absolutely, this is one of the best healers in the game, period, regardless of what Splinter you're in. But it gets better when you have another partner, another giant card, main tank, that can sustain, survive, kick out crazy damage. This really could be substantial. In partnership with that self-heal, in partnership with the armor that can be repaired with a Merdali Guardian. So Merdali Guardian somehow, even though it's an amazing card, gets better with a card like this. And I would say Affliction as a counter gets better when a card like C-Rec comes into it, because massive cards like this with huge hit points, you need to come with an Affliction. And so then Cleanse gets like a new utility or a new buff, because indirect, because you now need, on the blue team, maybe you need a cleanser to support your heal approach. And really, they're Cleanse. What do we got? So I was thinking Kelpinicia, but that's from the Untamed set with the reward cards from the Untamed because of the cracking. So I guess you're looking at Sea Stalker or River Nymph, because most of people are going to be looking from the modern perspective. And these are both excellent cards. River Nymph is also got the swiftness, so I'm going to say that this is probably my preferred of the two. But Sea Stalker is an amazing card. Also, it carries the Amplify, which becomes redundant because of the C-Rex ability. But and I don't love Snipe unless you're focusing in on Snipe. So I would say River Nymph is more interesting, especially since 4 mana is going to partner better. Since your 11 mana main tank is going to eat up a good amount of, most of your mana in some rule sets. So just picture River Nymph, Merdali Guardian, and your tank is the big boy, right? Holding it down. I would argue that's going to be a strong team no matter what you're doing. If the opponent's dropping a sneak, you might be in trouble. But I'm saying if they do archery, if they do magic reflect, if they do a main tank approach and a lower mana, that right there, depending on your summoner, that build I just said is 18 mana plus your summoner, 3 mana, 4 mana, 22 mana. That's a pretty low mana cap team that I just threw out there. You could throw on a 0 fiend or a 1, you know, another tank heal or a creeping ooze, bring it up to 23 or 24. 11's not too much. So there's some really strong partners with this blue team. This card fits in really well. I think when you bring a new bring a new tank to the team, I think, like I say, Merdali Guardian gets new life, Cleanse gets new life because Affliction would be impactful. Infliction as an opponent to this thing gets a new life because you've got one more big tank that you want to afflict so that you can nerf down or pull down. Giant Killer gets a buff in a sense because it's got one more target with which to really slap. And I think this card is going to be great. I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of nerf. I think, you know, a minor nerf comes at the card's limited sort of utility is in its melee damage output. So if you pulled this down to a 2 or a 3, that's a relatively unimportant and non-impactful nerf. That's a minor nerf. A big nerf is removing armor or, you know, lowering the hit points below 12. 12 is a key break point because it gets you 4 heal hit points per heal. And so massive nerfs to what this is offering would be to the hit points or to remove one of these damage reflections. I would argue maybe to pull away obviously pulling away Bloodlust would be huge. I think you could pull away Amp and that would be a pretty substantial nerf. I would argue that's quite a large nerf, and it's still a great card. That's how good I say this card is. So I'm saying this is an exceptional card. I'm thinking it's going to be must have. And I expect some kind of nerfs. I would think that the team will leave the hit points relatively untouched. And I would think that they're going to leave this sort of kit relatively untouched. I wouldn't be surprised if they think it's super OP, they'll pull away the amp. If they think it's a little OP, they'll nerf the damage output. And that's the range of sort of modifications I would anticipate with a card like this, because I think it's quite good. But I know they want to release an excellent card to spark Riftwatcher pack sales. So we'll see what they do. But I love this card. I think it's powerful, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for your time and attention. Have an amazing day. God bless.